Prince Andrew had to give up his fancy titles because King Charles told him he would do more if he didn't. The king told his younger brother he had to choose to leave or be made to leave. It seemed like the king had some big plans to make him go. There's a big house in Windsor, a secret fancy house in another country called Abu Dhabi, and a prince who messed up caught between them. Prince Andrew is in trouble again. For 22 years, Prince Andrew has lived in a huge house called Royal Lodge. It has 30 rooms and sits on a really big piece of land in Windsor Great Park. He hasn't paid much rent for it. But now we found out he also gets to use another fancy house, a super nice one with lots of helpers, in a country called the United Arab Emirates. The royal family of that country gave it to him. So why doesn't he move there? Why won't Sarah Ferguson, his ex-wife, go with him? And what do his ties to that country and another one called Switzerland really mean? In 2003, Prince Andrew got to use Royal Lodge for 75 years. This house used to belong to the Queen Mother. He paid £1 million right away to use it. The deal said Andrew also had to spend about £7.5 million to fix up the house in Windsor. In return, he would pay almost no rent. This deal meant he didn't have to pay rent for the whole 75 years. He can stay there until 2078. If he leaves early, the crown has to pay him about £500,000. People are very angry about this. They say he's holding on to royal special treatment while living off things he got because he was a prince. King Charles wants to make the royal family smaller and simpler. He has apparently told Andrew to leave Royal Lodge and move into a smaller house like Frogmore Cottage, but Andrew said no. While Andrew is fighting to keep his house in Windsor, news says he has another house waiting for him far away, 3,400 miles away. It's a huge palace in Abu Dhabi. The ruling family there gave it to him and Sarah Ferguson. People say the house has staff all year round and the royal family of the UAE takes care of it. They hoped that what they said on Friday, before this book came out, would finish the story about Prince Andrew and the Epstein scandal. It didn't. And here's all the new stuff you need to know. First, what does it mean for the royal family? Well, Prince Andrew is their relative and says he didn't do any of the bad things people say. People believe the palace is inside one of Abu Dhabi's very fancy private areas near the coast. This is where important people from other countries and visiting royals often stay. No real pictures of it exist, and no address has ever been shared. But people who know about it say it's like a new palace with shiny marble floors, pretty gardens, and private rooms. A very rich house made for visiting royalty. Experts guess that a house this big in Abu Dhabi could be worth between £10 and £15 million, depending on how big it is and how much security it has. But the ruling family of the UAE still owns it, not Andrew or Ferguson. It seems they just let him use it as a guest, not as an owner. Even with all that luxury, neither Andrew nor Sarah Ferguson has shown any sign they want to move there. Andrew says he's giving up his royal title of Duke of York, which makes him even further away from the royal family. So in a statement, the 65-year-old said the continuing accusations about him bother the work of his brother, King Charles III, and the rest of the royal family. Sarah is said to hate the very hot weather in the Gulf region. And Andrew reportedly thinks the area is too quiet, preferring to be around friends and parties in Windsor and London. But there's a bigger reason. Moving to the UAE would be like giving up and going away in secret. It would mean he'd lose the last bit of royal identity he still has. Royal Lodge, even with all the problems, is his sign of importance, his last claim to being a special royal. Behind the scenes, people think both he and Sarah are scared that leaving the house would cut off their connection to the royal family forever. Even though they're not working royals anymore, Royal Lodge keeps them inside the Windsor area, both really and in what it means. Prince Andrew is said to be very sad about the idea of being kicked out of his family home in Windsor, with a big cut to his yearly money coming in April. Andrew currently lives with his ex-wife Sarah Ferguson at Royal Lodge, a 30-room house in Berkshire, about 5 km south of Windsor Castle. A writer who knows about royals, Andrew Loney, thinks that if Prince Andrew truly wanted to disappear from everyone in Britain, he could move to Switzerland, where he used to own property, or to the Middle East. If he can't keep his lease at Windsor or if people pressure him too much, the house in Abu Dhabi could be a backup plan. Loney says the only way this whole story will go away is if Andrew leaves Royal Lodge, goes to live somewhere else abroad with Sarah Ferguson, and has all his special titles taken away. Switzerland offers secrets, privacy, and a way to stay out of the spotlight. The Middle East offers hospitality and the house he already has there. He hasn't publicly tried either of these options. Instead, Andrew stays in Windsor, protected by the lease. The problem is not solved. Andrew's connection to the Gulf region isn't new. From 2001 to 2011, he was the UK's special helper for international trade and investment. This story has been going on for a long time, as we know, but one of the main problems is him at Royal Lodge, this huge house. It's falling apart. Not as bad, I think, as people say. It still has gardeners and servants and things like that there. This job made him travel a lot across the Middle East, especially to Abu Dhabi and Dubai. His goal was to make Britain's trade stronger and get money invested from the Gulf. During those years, Andrew became good friends with the royal families there, especially the Al Nahyan family. These friendships continued long after he quit his job as trade helper in 2011, which happened because people kept criticizing his personal friends. Even after quitting, Andrew was often seen at Gulf events like car races and business meetings. It was during that 10 years that the Abu Dhabi palace arrangement was quietly made. His friendship with the UAE's royal family was real, lasted a long time, and helped both sides. It gave him access, a place to stay, and importance, even as his good name got worse back home. Andrew, who is 65, stubbornly held onto his titles even as the scandal grew bigger. He only gave them up because he was afraid of being publicly kicked out. Sources said the situation became too much for the king because Andrew couldn't promise him there wouldn't be any more bad news coming out. Sarah Ferguson's story is like Andrew's. She used to be the Duchess of York, but she's not using her titles anymore after her ex-husband gave up his. She has now changed her name to simply Sarah Ferguson, taking out all mentions of being a duchess. Her social media pages have been updated. People who know her say she's very angry about losing her status, but she's being smart about starting her career again. She has sold her house in Belgravia, stopped working with several old business partners, and started new media projects under her own name. But even with these changes, Sarah stays at Royal Lodge. Friends say she would leave if she could afford to, but her money is deeply tied to his, and the lease at Windsor keeps both of them there. Some people have thought she might move to the United States, where she used to work in TV and books. American audiences have usually been nicer to her than the British news. Still, there is no proof she plans to move. As for the UAE, Sarah's feelings are clear. She doesn't like the heat, has no special connection to the culture there, and hasn't shown any interest in starting a life in the Gulf. The House of York is falling apart because of its own problems. This family, who once seemed so glamorous and royal, now faces losing importance and being criticized by the public. Beatrice and Eugenie, Andrew's daughters, have stopped going to public events because of their father's scandals. Charities that Sarah Ferguson used to work with have moved away from her, worried about new problems. Andrew's Royal Lodge is falling apart because of what it represents. It's a huge house that costs millions to keep up, paid for by a prince with no public money and no clear way to earn money. And yet he stays, protected by the lease that keeps him there and the pride that defines him. Meanwhile, the palace in Abu Dhabi sits empty, its marble rooms unused, its staff waiting, a safe place no one dares to claim. King Charles has a hard choice. The public wants something to be done. Lawmakers demand that Andrew be removed from Royal Lodge, but the laws make it hard for the king to do anything. Unless Andrew willingly leaves, he can't be forced out without the crown having to pay him money. The king's plans to make the monarchy smaller are hurt by his brother's refusal to let go. Every news story about unpaid rent, every time a foreign palace is revealed, pulls the royal name down even further. Sarah Ferguson, for her part, might be getting ready for a new part of her life, one without royal titles. Whether that next step takes her to America, to another quiet place in Europe, or just further away from the palace walls, we will have to see. 2 lives, 2 palaces, one shared fall from grace. Prince Andrew holds on to Windsor. Sarah Ferguson holds on to changing herself. Their secret house in Abu Dhabi stands as a reminder of old special treatment, a reminder of how far the once shining House of York has fallen. The palace in the desert might be quiet, but the scandal around it is very loud. What do you think their next step will be? Will they stay in Royal Lodge or think about moving? Let me know in the comments.